So, where were you on Coronation Day back in June 1953? Chances are you were huddled round the newfangled gadget in the corner of the lounge called the television set, watching all the events as they unfolded in London. Or maybe you took part in one of those countless events held up and down the country to celebrate Coronation Day. Well, Ledbury was no exception. This small Herefordshire market town set about celebrating Coronation Day in high old style. They roasted an ox roast. And they did it right here, just in the shadow of the market house, and according to newspaper cuttings of the day, some 7,000 people turned up to take part. Well, everything that happened that day was recorded on film by one Jack Toe. Now, Jack was the son of a former station master in Ledbury and was married to Mrs. Dorothy Toe. And there aren't many people in Ledbury who haven't heard of Dolly Toe.
There is a photograph of Jack in a still photograph taken on that day of him actually filming the ox being roasted.
Well, with the help of his friend Eric Williams, the local magician and conjurer, who he did have a proper job as well, working for a firm of local solicitors, Eric and Jack edited the film and it was duly shown. And everybody applauded and said, "Isn't that wonderful? What a wonderful record of the day." And then, like the way of all things, it got relegated to the bottom drawer and eventually to the attic. And there it remained until 1995, when it was unearthed by one Jack Parry. Now, Jack was a local farmer and very much concerned with the day itself. Eventually, that film found its way to George Hill. He ran John Hill Hops, the ironmongers at the top of the town on the top cross, and also had a building business. And so he too was very much involved. Well, George passed the film over to me and asked if I could give it a new lease of life. Meanwhile, as I was just 12 and living in the Hom End, I wanted to know how the Rostocks had started and who was involved.
I've been trying to think about that. I think it must have been Bridger Champion, who was then one of the partners of C.T. and G.H. Smith, but not the senior partner, which he later became. And I think because it must have been him, because he's the only chap who could have brought the strands together. First of all, he persuaded Dave Rosser to present a beast, which was a lot of money. Then he persuaded Jack Parry to do the front of house, the sort of the social side, because Jack could and did persuade everybody. Then he needed, I suppose, Jack Hopkins to make the equipment in the coach builder's shop, because they still built bodies for lorries and that sort of thing, and cars. And then he needed a builder. And so I think that brought the four of us together. And there's a good photograph of the three of us sat on the hearth after we'd done it. But I think that's how it started. It was before the Rotary Club. I'm old and I'm sentimental, so a lot of things go through my mind. But what I'm delighted you're giving me the chance to do is to show a sort of thin, narrow slice through a very lively community, a thin but accurate slice of just what happened in 48 hours in 1953. That's Charlie Baldwin and Harry Herbert in our building yard loading the sand and the cement, ready to go down the town into the high street to build the fireplace. Here they are arriving at the site that we chose for the fireplace. The town surveyor did ask that we didn't set light to the tarmac. So there were no specific guidance given to the bricklayer and mate. They worked it out for themselves, and there they are, deciding where to put it. Since about 10 or 12 yards away, there's an Elizabethan market house, which is quite well known. They had to put it far enough away not to set fire to the market house. I'm sure you're going to ask me, what is the significant thing? And I shall tell you. You study that video as much as you like, and there is no precaution taken against theft or vandalism. We built that thing over a week in the main street. All the materials were delivered on site and just piled there. We didn't put a fence around it. We didn't even put a rope around it for a week. And it was completely untouched. At the last moment, somebody said, you know, we're going to get a lot of people around that fire and it'll be hot. And somebody said, I'll tell you what we'll do. We'll get some old oil drums and put them round with a stake in the middle and half fill them with rubble, and we'll put a rope round. A rope. And that was all we did, to keep between 2,000 and 3,000 people away. That's Jack Hopkins, who built the spit, whose men built the spit. And that's Dave Rosser, who gave the beast. And the mayor could be relied upon to make a speech. I remember we lit the fire about 4 o'clock in the afternoon, 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon. Dave Rosser did that. That's Jack Hopkins loading the fire, and Jack Swathes, or Bert Swathes, coming around the corner. Bridget Champion in the Trilby hat. That's Harold Wills, the bank manager, in the glasses. That's Clive Tutt. John Masefield, Huey Hewitt, that's Basher Groves, Dr. Groves and Cyril Clement. Dr. Groves picked up Norman Weston, who was a little chap, held him up to see it. Gosh, that fire was hot. We couldn't have used solid fire bars, we had to use tubes, so that the air went through them and kept the temperature down. There's Boy Bennett and Leslie Farr. Oh yes, I know them all. Absolutely. There's Joyce and James Murray, Bob Jukes and his wife, Ginger Coe, Jack Parry, House Turner, Dave Rosser, Bruce Blandford. That's Sheila Alexander, the Carnival Queen, and Huey Hewitt behind her. How it all comes back. Well, well.
Jack, of course, was up at the crack of dawn and went down to do filming very early in the morning because the ox was brought down, I believe, from Churchill's down the High Street. And as you'll see on the film, there's very little, very few people about at that time. And the fire was lit, and Jack filmed all that. I was at home because, of course, by this time we'd got a very small 9-inch television set, and all the neighbours and friends wanted to come and watch the coronation. So in our small cottage, it was bursting at the seams because these people were all there. And I think I managed to give them lunch, which was jacket potatoes and cold meat, because, of course, we were still really quite short of food after the war.
The problem was to stop the spit revolving, but the carcass staying in one place. So there were complicated cross braces, as you can see, and they didn't work. We had a dickens of a job later in the day. The butchers who took part were Charlie Churchill, Harry Couples, Nordy Kington, his father Doug Kington, and Harold Lewis. So they're all there. That was Charlie Churchill. That's Doug Kington on the left in the glasses. Harry Couples doing a bit of basting. My word, that was a problem, because the heat of the fire was so enormous. We'd constructed the trestle so that you could draw the beast back 6 feet from the fire or roll it up close to it. That's Jim Smith, the photographer. That's an early example of a commercial, you'll notice, for the Cerebos salt. I wonder if we can get sponsorship. That's a cocoa broom, price 1 and 3. And worth it too. That's John Masefield. That's Bill Masefield adjusting the wheel. It's amazing where the crowds came from. People have said that there were over 2,000 people there at any one time, and I should think that's possible. I think that might be me doing the wood cutting. That's Cyril Clements just arrived. Yes, we had to keep turning the beast, and we had to keep backing it off away from the fire to stop it burning on the outside while remaining raw inside. So it was considering that nobody had any experience to draw, and it was quite amazing how well it tasted. No policeman, you will notice, no crowd control at all. 10 to 6 the Queen is crowned, yes? and Sheila Alexander, and one of the Kington girls. And with the mayoral chain is A.R.C. Turner. That's Bridget Champion and Mrs. Champion, who started the whole thing off. She was a pretty girl. Worked in Bourne, chemists. The first slice was cut by Dave Rosser, I think, and Sheila Alexander was given the first not very ladylike sandwich. We had 2 sets of carvers made. They had to get an old cutler in Sheffield out of retirement to make them. He could remember. And both sets of carvers are still in Ledbury. But we don't often get a joint big enough to practice on nowadays. That's Jack Parry and Harry Couples and Harold Lewis, the 2 butchers. And that's Dave Rosser, who gave the beast. A.R.C. Turner. And that's Dr. Groves. But there's been no ox roast that I know of since, although, funnily enough, in Queen Elizabeth's biography, the present Queen's biography, which we were reading when we were away, there was a mention of the government having made provision for oxen to be roasted for her coronation. So there must have been others.
Well, there we have it. A little bit of nostalgia, a little bit of history. June the 3rd, 1953. I wonder what they'll show about us 50 years from now.